So one of those people that we have been very thrilled to work with and helped get elected and are so proud of his progress is Gordy Bunch. And he's here tonight to talk about the Woodlands Township. So please help me welcome.
I apologize for handing out so much material. I figured you guys can read what I've done, what I've seen since I've been in the township. What Julie doesn't know, maybe John doesn't know, maybe a lot of people don't know, is my path to the township actually started in a Tea Party meeting about 3 years ago, where Michelle and I were visitors, didn't sign in, didn't talk to anybody, and we were flies on the wall checking this group out. And it was a good year and a half or 2 years later before we ever came back and talked to anybody. Not because there was anything wrong with this group, it's just, at that time we weren't ultimately ready to engage. But the night I came, Peggy Hausman was talking about the township. And that kind of planted a little bit of a seed on how we really needed some help on that board to work towards our own governance, our self-reliance, and limiting some of the things that were happening that she needed some help with. So I handed out a year's worth of newsletters that you can read in your leisure. I just want to cover the quick highlights, and I'm going to spend more time answering your questions. So in August, and it's right after our budget hearings, we had our tax rates that had to be planned. We live in Montgomery County, Texas, probably the most conservative place on the earth, and I couldn't get a 50-cent per 100 lower tax rate passed by our current board, despite pointing out that we have been over budget on revenue, under budget on expenses every single year. So last week we started our pre-budget analysis. We are $5 million in the green above projections. My 50-cent per $100 cut that I proposed that was shot down was only $700,000 in revenue. Not only could we have afforded it, we could have afforded 5 times it. So I'm shocked sometimes by some of the other folks that I serve with on where they come up with some of these concepts. But, it's a public vote. The people who voted for the lower tax rate were myself, Peggy Hausman, and Jeff Long. The remainder of our board voted against it. So, that was August. If you don't get my newsletter and you live in the Woodlands area, you might want to sign up for it. It's got a lot of cool stuff. So, through the budget process, found out that there's a lot of different things that most of us didn't know. Probably that was out of order. We've had a lot of deforestation, a lot of tree removals, a lot of replanting. This is a significant issue for a town called the Woodlands. We spent $2.3 million last year in tree removal. What just happened in Oklahoma yesterday? Tree removal, yes, of the worst kind. This community does not have the proper insurance to sustain the damage that just happened up in Moore, Oklahoma. So, in October, we got our insurance renewed. It was not proper coverage, it was not even proper timing. We were presented a booklet about 400 pages long and said vote. 400 pages long, vote, and not only vote now because there is no additional time because it goes into effect in 3 days. So I threw a little bit of a tizzy fit, refused to vote, excoriated the staff member for even thinking that was appropriate. And I said, I'm not Nancy Pelosi, I'm not going to pass and vote on something that I haven't read and don't understand, and I happen to be an insurance expert. So, that was $1 million expenditure. While the other people were disappointed, they voted anyways. Well, we got to have insurance. Really? Got the right kind. I'll give credit to Rick over here in a minute. All right, so I got a little bit of flack because I built some sports fields. Anybody against the AstroTurf? Yeah, it's my fault. I'll get to my fault later on. We did the all-weather sports fields with Bear Branch and Alden Bridge. We had somewhere around $15 million that was part of a bond proceed sitting in a bank account, losing value every year. And it was designed or voted on to improve our parks. And there's all these plans for our park improvements that have been on the books, but no thing was ever getting done. You can see a little park here and there, a little park there, but all the grand parks were just being kind of ignored. I don't know if you have grandkids or you have kids that are playing ages, but those fields hold water, mosquitoes, pretty much unplayable and unsafe. We also had about 45% underutilization because of the way they held the water and we rained out and everything else. So the money was sitting on the ground, it was losing value. Buying one park per year, one field per year over a 7-year period, who thinks that's more effective or efficient or cost efficient than doing 7 fields at once? Has everybody heard cheaper by the dozen? They wanted to buy 1 egg a year and eventually get it all done, and I accelerated that. That's why you're seeing the construction that's happening today. There's going to be a track when they're done with Bear Branch going around the perimeter of the field for jogging. I got a question on that. That was actually the original plan for Bear Branch going back into the 80s. They just never finished it. All right. I've been poking a little bit at the Sheriff's Department for our contract. That's not popular. But 93% of our local sheriff's coverage is being paid by township tax. It's not the Township Sheriff's Department, it is the Montgomery County Sheriff's Department, and the tax that we send to the county is supposed to provide us our public services. We are supplementing that to the degree where we might as well pay for the whole thing. We had somewhere around 26 county-provided deputies prior to the township merger with all the associations. They now pay for 6. I'm not sure how we went down in county-provided services and absorb more of the expense, but that's where we're at today. Nothing against the Sheriff's Department. If you can get somebody to do something and pay for your bills because the county wasn't, more power to you. But I'd rather the county do its job, raise its tax rates if it has to provide the services that it's required to provide by law, and not pass that on to us. Because we're paying twice. I pay my county tax and my township tax, and I get the same one service that the county is obligated to provide. Our township charter has no law enforcement authority, but we spend almost $10 million a year paying for redundant law enforcement services that the county is required by law to provide. So, that issue's a little sensitive because I like having the sheriffs around. I want to be safe. I'm not against public safety. I'm against making sure it comes out of the right bucket, and I'm not paying for it twice. I think it's a disservice to our community to sit there and say that look how great everything is, and not disclose the fact that you're paying for it at 100% level, and the county's not doing its job. So, I talked to the county about that. County judge was supposed to prove me wrong. Never heard back from him. Maybe one of the new commissioners followed up on it, told me I might be right. So, that's something to work on. We got to make sure that our government entities are not doing more, like building a mental health prison facility and other things that's not, in their charter to be doing, and providing the law enforcement, basic public safety, road maintenance, and things that they are supposed to do. All right, so that's in one of my newsletters. What's in the policies? This goes into me questioning our whole process of how do we actually get insurance bid. There was really no process. We would just keep using the same guy that we did using, and he's great, isn't he? Rick, you can stand up, Rick. Rick works with me. He's like chartered property casualty underwriter, and Rick worked through all of our township policies. So, for $1 million, if we had the tornado that came through last night, we would have almost no coverage as a town. Now, our physical property, buildings, and everything like that would be covered, but our budget is over 55% sales tax revenue, hotel tax revenue, and special events tax revenue. So what does that do if you have no facilities where people can come shop? What do you think your tax rate's going to be? You know what I asked for in July of last year? Coverage that would cover our sales tax revenue exposure. And what I got? Vote for this today. It's $1 million. You'll love it. Promise. Just, you can read it in the next month because it'll take you a month to read. So Rick was able to go back and we re-engineered the whole insurance needs. Not only was the coverage available, but the right package of insurance would have cost $650,000. So we brought the current broker who everybody loves, and he comes to defend himself, and acknowledges that all the stuff that we said is correct, and that nobody on the board ever asked him for that. And not only did he know it existed, but he had the same carrier that he could have wrote the policies through. All right, so I'm now pushing to sue Willis for not providing advice, not providing coverage. Of the $2.3 million I mentioned earlier that we paid in debris removal from drought-related issues or from other storm-related damage, some of that would have been covered by the insurance that Rick and I worked on. And the man could have sold it to us, our staff could have insisted on it, instead we got nothing. So I'm going to go back and see if I can get some of our money back. All right. Anybody read the newspaper? Something about a fault line. It does run through my house and Dennis's. That's not why I'm doing the township. My fault line has nothing to do with the township except for areas where it may impact where the township has expenses and facilities to maintain. It's an unfortunate issue. It's not an unknown issue. Well known to the county, well known to those who've been in the Woodlands area for a long time, just not disclosed and publicly mapped. The San Jacinto River Authority is putting pipelines in coming from Conroe down into the mud districts down here. You know what they had to do to get that done? Geotechnical studies. Back copies. They're on their website. They identify all these faults that are being denied exist are on the San Jacinto River Authority's website. So if you live in an area that you think got problems, check that out. But that's not, like I said, really a township issue. For me, the township issue is we've had residents call asking for help because they're not sure if they have a problem. And our staff's answer has been, we don't know. So they call a developer. We don't know. Someone's lying. We do know. They're there. There's maps. So I sent that out to everybody in my newsletter, in case you're curious. And last thing on the newsletter I had was an amenity card trying to get our discounted services for our residents to use. Those waterway taxis that nobody rides. Who rides those waterway taxis? Why don't you ride them? They don't go anywhere. They're boring. They're hot. $5 for one day is not a really realistic price. I'm trying to get us unlimited rides for like $5 for a year if you live here and you're a resident, because it's a sunk cost. You don't make money on it, so we might as well get our people to use it. I did hand out our 5-year plan for the township. It's got our current year budget in it. It shows you the variances by department, our capital reserves, our reserves by account type. We are way over budget on revenue and under budget on expenses yet again. So the cries will be in July when we do our budget planning session to lower the taxes more, right? Everybody wants to lower taxes. I may flip-flop on you this year because I'm not sure that lowering the tax rate this year is going to make sense. I'm going to talk you through this. Right now, the township is really the only special purpose government in Texas. We just got deemed qualified to be a direct recipient of federal transit funds. You have to belong to the Houston-Galveston Area Council and really get in line for that money. As a non-municipality, we don't get a seat at the table. So that's a negative of not being our own city. For any kind of road planning or road development, right now, most of that's done by the Woodlands Road Utility District. That is controlled by the developer. The county works with that group, and most of their plans have been good. And that's really the only reason we have roads, is because there was that entity created to do that. Not against that. I'm just thinking that, long term, we need to be self-governed. As a community of over 100,000 people, we were voted Texas's #1 city, and we're not a city. Not only that, we made the United States top 10 list. We are a top 10 city in the United States for highest average income. #10. And we're not a city. So somehow we think that our form of governance is, let's outsource everything to the county, who was just excoriated for lack of ethics over the past several years, all of our public safety services. Somehow we're good enough to run a fire department, but not a police department. We're good enough to run a fire department, run it for all of the local adjacent communities. We are Shenandoah's fire department. We are going to be a county emergency response center out of our new central fire station. There's talks about transferring emergency calls to our units, because they're actually newer and better. So I take issue with punting issues that are relative to our community. One of the big negatives in the study to incorporate was the water issues. If we incorporate, we have to absorb all the mud debt, and that creates a disparity to people in Grogan's Mill who pay a 4-cent per 100 tax rate versus the people in Creekside who are at 99 cents per 100 tax rate. We are looking at how we fix that. There's multiple ways that we can get through by not absorbing the muds. You guys follow Conroe and April Sound Annex. April Sound's muds are not being absorbed into the city of Conroe. They worked it out. You know what? That was never an option in our study. Never showed it. A lot of the expenses in this study to incorporate showed us buying and building all these new amenities that we had to provide as a city that we didn't have to provide as a township. All these things already exist. If I'm paying 93% of the cost of having a police force, I don't think it's a $20 million increase to my annual budget expense if I'm already paying 10. They used 2011 revenues against the projected 2014 expense. I told you we were $5 million over revenue in this current fiscal year. We were $5 million over revenue in the last fiscal year. So if you use a static low number against a higher expense, and we are under on expense, that study was wholly flawed. It was designed, in my opinion, to give one outcome. Taxes will go up so egregiously high, don't vote for it, and the burden to be incorporated is a 70% vote of the public who shows up. So it's a pretty high hurdle to get over. I think more of the board, as we've looked at issues that we're facing, we've taken on transit. The park and rides that run through the Woodlands are now operated by the Woodlands Township. Used to go through Brazos, and because we came to that urban area, that's now our project. It's flawed. It's got some issues. We basically inherited a broken system that used to be the most efficient in the country. Now, it's not broken because we broke it. The operators went bankrupt. And the new cost per hour to operate the buses is about 80% higher than it was last year. So you're going to hear us talk about buying buses, 40 of them. Might be $10, $20 million. Why are you buying buses? It's crazy. It actually works, and it'll be something we'll have to come back and talk to you through on why the transit issues are big for us. The traffic mitigation challenges we have as a growing area are huge, and those buses take a lot of cars off the road at peak driving times. So there is federal funding for that. It's mostly funded by the feds. But we have to get a grant from HGAC, and we are the lowest man in the total bill. And we need $10 million from them. HGAC wants to give it to us. But every other municipality gets to vote on who gets the money. We don't even get a vote. And we are the largest transit group outside of Metro. So Incorporation has a lot of negative issues that we're trying to work through. There's a lot of positives. Right now, I get a lot of complaints. Why is this commercial building being built behind my house? When I moved here, it was zoned to be a reserve. Now it's zoned to be a high-rise. Well, who makes the rules? The developer. They've changed and replotted numerous numbers of parcels of land because they control the whole process. We have no building codes that we can enforce or even create. We cannot make a law or ordinance at all in our own town. And we are the 10th wealthiest, highest average earning community in the United States. We are the #1 city in Texas, and we are not truly self-governed. So I'm not for outsourcing our stuff to a county or a private enterprise. if we can figure out the right way to do it. Sorry, questions? Yes.
You mentioned buses, I was just curious, how you look at natural gas, not thinking about the future. Just that maybe a low cost
I think they're natural gas now. I think our township trolleys are already natural gas.
Gordy, would you repeat the question?
He was asking if the buses we're looking at are going to be natural gas powered versus normal gas or diesel. I don't know. We don't have a bid for the buses. We can't even submit for the buses until we get done with these transit plans that we just authorized to get started. And there is a South Montgomery County mobility plan where basically all the local governments are chipping in some money so we can better design the roads and pathways through all of our communities as they develop. So, but the buses you can come up with. Yes, ma'am.
When you say buses, are you talking about commercial buses for people going to work into Houston?
Correct. And we're also looking at the fact that given the growth of our area, we may end up with actually reverse commuting, where people will be busing in here. Because with the ExxonMobil expansion, all the ancillary service companies that actually service that company, the oil companies that are domiciled here, we are actually bringing people into the Woodlands every day to work.
But you're not talking about commuting from city buses.
These are transit buses, not city buses, because we're not a city yet, right?
Well, I mean, nothing that you could take me from my house to the mall.
Well, if you let me expand the services. Here's what I love about the buses, all right? I really don't like the bus thing, but we own it, so we might as well make it work. If we buy the buses, I can do whatever I want with the bus. Right now, Brazos Transit and another company is outsourced at 100% turnkey. So when they're not taking somebody back and forth between us and Houston or the medical center, that bus is theirs, they do what they want with it. We own the bus. If we have a weekend event like the Xperity Golf Tournament or Ironman, or it's the holiday season and I want to turn on the buses for weekend shopping, commuting where you can go to a park and ride, park there, hop on the bus, take it to the mall, shop, hop on the bus and go back and not be bothered by nowhere to park and know where to get there. I can do that if I own the bus. We are looking at things like that. Before we got the FTA thing, I was looking at how to expand the trolley services further into the community so that those who can't drive because they're either disabled, lost a license, not licensed because they're not old enough. I don't want him riding on the bus by himself, but we need better transportation options. Yes, ma'am.
I understand there's taxi service now. I was really happy to see that. Is it from you all or?
No, we won't be operating a taxi.
Okay, but what I mean is, did you let them come in or?
We can make no laws or ordinances. This is free willing. You want to be a pedicab out there on the street, get after it. I don't own the streets. The streets are owned by the county. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous when you look at it. I own the pathway that's sitting next to the street, but I can create laws about the pathway, not laws, ordinances about the pathway, but that's about it.
So, I'm new here. So, to the Woodlands. So, when you talk about incorporating, when we became a city, would we then have more control over how we did roads?
Everything.
All of it?
Yes.
We would take that away from the county?
Well, it's a negotiation.
Okay.
No, the roads automatically become ours.
Okay.
Here's the way I look at it. The study that was done did nothing to show any cooperation from any other local government entity. So right now, the county owns 2 libraries in the Woodlands. Do we need to build a library if we incorporate when there's already 2 in the Woodlands? No, we need to work out a conveyance agreement with the county saying we're going to absorb one of their libraries that they already don't want. Hey, guess what? There's already a jail cell here in the Woodlands. It's now out of this little district office. There's already a court built to it. I need to go out and build a new court. No, I need to talk to the county about, look, we think we want to incorporate, you have some assets, we'd like some conveyance, we're going to take stuff off of your obligation list, right? We're going to save you money at the county by taking these things on. We will not get a tax cut. They will not lower the tax rate because we do this, but we will be lowering their expense. So if we negotiate correctly before we ever get to a vote, we should have interlocal government agreements laid out saying, look, at such time we incorporate this building, that building, these services, these people, right, the sheriff's department people can be converted. Or we can still subcontract that out. We could. You never know. Or, you know, some parts of it, because right now, we don't pay for their detectives, we don't pay for the Montgomery County Jail. So there are some aspects of leveraging, you know, the best of both worlds. But we would be in total charge of our own future destiny. Governments would call me up and say, why can't we have fireworks ordinance in the middle of the woodlands? Because we can't. That's the county. And if the county says there's no, you know, restriction against fireworks in the woodlands, there's no restriction. So, any other questions, sir?
I was just gonna point out, you all have all this reverse commuting, and if you own the buses, you get paid tickets going both directions.
Yeah, actually, the fare box before the company went bankrupt, cash flow. So we have about $5 million left over from multiple years of positive cash flow from the transit. That will be depleted quite quickly if we don't figure out how to either change service providers or own our own buses. HGAC came and talked to us last week and is supporting the $10 million matching fund request so we can own the buses. They have no other person in the area, and some of their funds that they get have to be used for transit. Metro is broken. Metro is the least efficient. We are the most efficient. So even though we're bottom of the total pool in line, they know that for their effective ability to get money, that success rate is critical for funding. So they would very likely support our measure and give us what we need, because it helps them too. Mr. So here's how it works money-wise. The county gets the money off of us, off of our property taxes. What are they still gonna get if we incorporate? The exact same amount. No, because it's county-wide tax. They can't differentiate between us and everybody else.
So,
Right now, it
and
is.
all you're getting, exactly what I said,
Right.
is the local controls and the potential for more layers.
No, because the layers already exist. They're just not locally controlled. So you're not creating anything that's new. You're just replacing somebody who's further away. Think King George, right? We rebelled against the guy up in England that didn't represent our interests because he wasn't here. If you look at the structure right now, the Woodlands is 100,000 people out of 500,000 in the county. We're close to 45% of the total tax revenue for the county. We got 6 sheriffs being provided by the county. That's egregious. That's offensive.
But you're asking for ordinance.
Sure.
And that's somebody's got to
Right. So that's a great point. Right now, all the tickets that these sheriffs that we pay, right? Where's the revenue go? To the county. I pay the guy's entire salary. I buy his car. I pay for his gas. I buy his gun. I buy his bullets. He pulls you over on our streets, gives you a ticket, and the money that that man generated goes to the county general fund. You got a couple issues. It's not all about the sheriff's contract. That's something that I think I could live with if we got better allocated funding towards our area. It's really going to be about the federal transit funding, the TxDOT funding, that we're not going to be able to get. The ability not to, not to control anything.
Okay, so is there a suggestion?
Yeah.
About when we see the HGC, that we would be separate and ordinance being covered, so on that account, it would be HGC, but it would be y'all are going to be on your own, it's the ordinance being
Right.
The county's going to continue to, as much as possible, with the ordinance.
Right now, the way it works is, when it comes to federal transit, the Woodlands is key. The FTA formulas that allocates funds, we're it. The county itself has no transit that qualifies for SWAT. Conroe is in it because of population, but they have no successful transit that qualifies it for anything. So the only reason we're not in a better position is because we're not incorporated. Because the way the rules are reading is municipalities have preference over unincorporated areas.
And you still have to have that.
And we do. We're it. I've got $50 million in the bank. Literally, I gave you the report. We have $50 million in cash sitting in the bank doing nothing. You know, between all the different reserve funds, I'm holding on to $50 million. What do you think we're getting in return out of the banks?
50 grand.
0.27%. What was the rate of inflation last year? You know, close to 3. We lost value by doing nothing. So I'm looking at the cost of incorporation in the future is not going to be less than it is today. We may not be as cash flush in the future as we are right now. You know, if we can't get an agreeable path forward for incorporation, it's not going to happen. And the earliest we could vote for it is November of 2014, so it's not like it's imminent. It's not going to happen this year. It's going to take a lot of thought to rework that study. And I'm not advocating we go back out with consultants. I'm about tired of being told what to think. If you sit in my board meetings, or even just watch them online, I am spoon-fed the answer I'm supposed to just blindly vote for. Staff recommends this. Really? That's the highest person on the bid list. Why would you recommend somebody 2.5 times higher than the next guy qualified on your list? Familiarity. They're the best. They're the only ones. I'm telling you, I have heard this in numerous times, that we owe so much to this individual, this firm, their knowledge, and the da-da-da-da. We couldn't find a better. Really? Then you failed. There should be nobody who's irreplaceable in our government contracts or in our government period. If we can replace the President of the United States every 4 years, even with incompetency, how the hell can I not replace a welfare? So, yes, sir.
Okay, is the resistance, now you mentioned the staff and the bids on the insurance, okay? Is the problem staff or is the problem on the board?
It's both, right? First, the board never even read anything they voted for. They spent $1 million. You can come in here and negotiate every other person. 6 people voted for $1 million expenditure and have no idea what they voted for, other than it said they were paying for insurance.
And what are you doing with the staff if they do that?
I'm pointing out to them my displeasure, giving them, it's a broker's fire, in my opinion. And the staff actually wanted to keep the guy. The actual broker who admitted that he knew the coverage existed, didn't offer it to it because we didn't ask for it. Actually, the staff recommended we allow him to continue on as the broker so he can place the proper coverage next time.
What
Staff, that would be.
what level of expertise does the staff have? You have a CPCU,
Right.
and how are they handling? Why are they handling?
They don't know. There's no risk manager for the township.
Yeah.
Okay, so they thought the broker was the risk manager. The broker represented himself as the risk manager. The broker didn't do any risk management at all.
Absolutely, obviously.
So I'm not a CPCU, Rick is. That's why I had Rick do the interview.
Yeah.
Right? He's more qualified than I am to do that stuff. But I identified the day I got there, look, if 55% of my total revenue is sales tax revenue, hotel tax revenue, and special events tax revenue, I better make sure I have insurance on that.
Yeah.
And not only that, I have dependent property issues. If I'm dependent on property taxes for the other 45%, I better have coverage for that. Go talk to any of these cities up in the Northeast that got whacked out last year. Go over to Moore, Oklahoma. They've been hit twice in the last, 10 years? You know, each time that happens, you know, we have a $100 million budget. You want to know what your tax rate would be if we had one of these events come through here and actually do some damage? Because the sales tax is gone, and there's nobody staying in a hotel. That's got to be made up somewhere. So you have more than double the exposure because we're more than half relying on other people visiting us to generate our tax revenue. Yes. We have a capital reserve fund, which is actually about $20 million right now, of the $50 million I mentioned earlier. That $20 million is directly identified to specific assets. Replacing a fire engine, replacing a building, doing maintenance and stuff scheduled over the next 30 years. So $20 million of the $30 million is kind of already got an identified home. The other $18.9 million 19 million that we have in the general fund is for general expenses. So we have basically 20% of our revenue covered in a reserve. Now, let me ask you this. Would you carry 20% of your income in a bank losing value because it's being deflated by inflation? Or would you buy insurance for $650,000 and slide that risk off? Because we already spent $1 million and didn't slide it off. Yes, why?
Hi, Director Bunch.
I'm sure I'll see you tomorrow night.
Well, I was going to say, I'll be there. Would you tell Dr. Rob that I'll
sure
be
you
there
do.
and talk about him? I want to, look, here's the thing. I was there at these town hall meetings, at least probably 3 of them, maybe, when this business of incorporation came up and there were experts telling pros and cons. I've never seen such an overwhelming opposition to incorporation in my life. There wasn't hardly anybody at any of those meetings. So it got in my mind, as well as others, that nobody said, well, maybe 20 years, you got until 2054, I think.
Okay, so it's not broke, don't fix it. I heard that a lot.
But now, I'm hearing from you that, am I misperceiving what you're saying? You're sort of not coming out for incorporation, but you're setting the stage for a legitimate debate on the pros and cons of incorporation. Are you going to show that leadership and continue this?
Yes, that is exactly what I'm doing. I've basically expressed that we've had a lack of that when it came to negotiating with our county, negotiating with the developer on mutual beneficial agreements. We have fallen short in actually sticking up for the residents and or our community as a whole.
You think that if you actually go out on a limb and you and others for incorporation, that you're going to continue getting this Tea Party support?
Well, you know, it's a difference. It's like, I like limited government. I don't want to pay tax twice. I don't want to pay one other government to do the job that they already got paid to do. That's stupid. You know, we have no control over that. If they can't show up and do what they're supposed to do off the tax they already collect, why am I taxing my residents to pay them to do the job they already were supposed to be doing?
You're showing extremely good
Look, I'm already
leadership.
hated by most of the people that work in that building because of my
Sign of
arguments.
character.
What's that?
A sign of character.
Yeah, you know, look, I'm fighting their pension plans. I get it, it's not popular. You know, that's not why I'm there. You know, if I'm popular, I'll stay at home.
Now, let me ask you about one other thing, because you make a big issue of this reduction, the $700,000 is 50 cents. And I know the difference between you and another endorsee, Bass. Y'all came pretty close to getting into it physically, didn't you? A physical fight up there over this. What do you think about Bass's position on this, and where do you think the Tea Party should stand on this? I'm always telling them how they should stand on things.
Yeah, and that's why I said earlier about the tax cut for this year. You know, what I'm looking at is there is an extreme expense transition to become incorporated. Now we have the opportunity to use the excess revenues and the reserves we have to do it now and not make it a burden on our kids. You know, failing to get it done and waiting for the next generation to do it is why we have so many problems today. It has to be done. It's not a matter of, I want to incorporate it by God because I think it's the greatest thing on earth. We have to do it over the next 20, 30, 40 years. We should have fixed Social Security 40 years ago before it got this big. So,
I know
that was my
some
question.
flood districts here, and if you incorporate, it's going to be a sensitive issue for the amount of tax rate, 4 cents, 100 and 36, for instance, and 99 cents and 27. Somehow that'll have to be protected, in my opinion, in order to get the vote passed.
Right.
Now, if you do, you're going to wind up with a situation like in San Antonio, where you've got 1,900 little cities kind of living together to make a big city.
We have to have two strategies. One,
Well, if San Antonio police is a problem, fire is a problem, you know, my house is on fire, well, where do you live? Well, I'm sorry, our line stops at the center of the street, you'll have to call so-and-so.
yeah, our fire service doesn't work like that. It's one professional, all Cody Fire Department, the aid stations in the Woodlands. We actually service beyond our.
What I'm saying is you're setting the ground for doing this by, if you separate out these mud districts, which are governmental taxing authority, and keep them separate from the authority of the government in order to protect the 4 cents versus 99 cents tax evaluation,
Yeah.
which I think you should do, by the way. I do not think it's fair. I have paid for 30 years my debt. Now, I do not want to take somebody else's debt for another 30 years.
Right, and I agree with that, and we know as a board that there's no way to get incorporation to pass if we don't take care of that disparity. And that's why I said it's gotta be two approaches. One, we do something like Conroe did with Able Sound, and we don't touch the muds. Or two, we figure out a way to absorb the muds, use some of our excess reserves to offset that rate disparity, so it's not a big impact to everybody that may have a lower rate or may have a higher rate. That's something that we have to look at. So it won't pass if we can't solve that problem. You know that. But I'm not the only director who's kind of going in this direction.
Well, it has to be solved.
Right.
It can't be talked over. You can't
No, it
spin
never
it
gets to a
and say,
vote.
well, we'll give you a tax rebate for 10 years. So 10 years later, they drop it, and all of a sudden, what was MUD 36's rates go to 69 cents, which it would be if they were all incorporated.
And it was 26 cents was what it was.
And-
We're not.
Then it disappears. So I don't believe what people tell me anymore. I've seen it time and again.
Why, I don't know why.
God, why am I not surprised, right?
Yeah.
The mud is the biggest issue, and it won't even get up for a vote to be incorporated if we don't have a viable, legitimate answer to that, because we know there's no way to pass. So
I certainly think that's true.
Your thoughts are
He
accurate.
does too.
Yeah, no, we all do. We all know now that because April Sound was able to pull around out its hat and Conroe worked it out, there's now new laws that have been created to make that possible to incorporate without having to absorb the water. As far as I know, the water districts and the muds only provide that service. There's no other service dislocation like fire or law enforcement.
Water and sewer, I said, and 12-inch lines or less.
That would be the ideal solution, is we can do it without. Alternatively, working out something that, makes it work right there. All right, that ain't gonna happen soon, so we'll work on it. Anyways, I'm sorry I talked too much.
Dr., this man here has had a question for a long time. Would you permit him to ask one?
That's not my call, Walter.
Right there. Dr. Julie, could he ask a question? Said his hand, but
My only question is, I was kind of curious about Creekside, since they're in the Harris County district, how does that play into the future governance?
Yeah, the Woodlands straddles 2 counties. Creekside is the Woodlands. There is not a redheaded stepchild community over there. They're just new and have a lot of mud debt because they're not built out yet. The mud debt will come down over time and it'll create a little bit of parity. All right, so I said a lot of things about a lot of people, and I have these little public safety cards to give you guys as putting up with me. It's got websites and phone numbers to pretty much all the elected groups and divisions of Montgomery County and your local villages. So I will do that. All right, thank you for your attention. And
Okay, Greg, you have one more comment?
the legislative update sparked something for me. Before you all think I'm just crazy and this is a corporation freak, there is pending legislation right now in this session to make the Woodlands Township justify its own existence every 6 years. We have to justify our right to exist under our current form of governance. If you look at the way that is written, we have to be more transparent in our expenditures, and our expenditures need to match our enabling legislation. I mentioned to you earlier, we are not authorized to do law enforcement. We're spending almost 10% of our budget on law enforcement. If you look at the intent of that special purpose district review process, where we could get sunsetted, and then that whole 50 years we have to get incorporated doesn't exist. So, I left that part out because I get a little bit passionate about the other stuff. But I appreciate your review because it sparked that is something that has been proposed and has been moving along. Don't know. We are not loved by the municipal league because they don't like our special form. So there are groups out there working against us.
That's cool, yeah.
I can do this.